It's the Wednesday Wisdom Show, and you want to know answers to all kinds of questions. This Wednesday Wisdom Show is really a kind of an invitation to an event that's going to happen this coming Sunday at 2 p.m. Rather than me just expressing an idea to you or explaining a concept, we're going to have a live question and answer event. I mean, this whole show is about answering people's questions, things that they search for on the internet, deep questions about spiritual advancement or how things work according to the science of Kabbalah. But this Sunday at 2 p.m., you will have a chance to ask any question that you have live and get an answer while the show is happening. Now, the event is held for a diverse audience. First of all, it's for people who are studying Kabbalah at Kabbalah.info. So you will be able to see the kinds of questions that people who are at the beginning stages of their study ask, and you're going to hear answers to things that you might not have thought of because you're not studying, and it could open up a whole lot of stuff for you. And also there will be people from Facebook and YouTube. And here's the link on screen and also below so that you can join us on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So as a kind of a preview, an hors d'oeuvre for this coming Sunday's show, I've gone back and looked at comments and questions that people have written to some of the recent shows, and I've picked out a few of them, and I want to answer or comment on them. So on the episode that was called "What is Esoteric Kabbalah?", there's an interesting comment here by Tech Guru. That's his name, Tech Guru. And first he thanks us for the show. And he says, "I have read so much Kabbalah, and now I know why I never bothered to apply it. It wasn't authentic." This, however, meaning, I guess, the information on this show, I know to be authentic as God was revealing things to me as I watched these videos, and it was about the things that were directly related to the videos and videos that I was yet to watch. This often happens. I get exposed to something, and then I get explained what it means, and sometimes he does this with whole pages of books and even shows me things before they happen. Now, that's the thing about Kabbalah. Because it really is about the system of nature, that is, the place of human experience inside of nature, that it's about the purpose and the direction of life, how we experience things, and is really about kind of the physics of the spiritual world. That is, how our emotions and sensations are related to the structure of nature, why things happen the way that they do, and in what direction everything is moving. In other words, it's a science that's very, very close to us as humans. It's about the human experience. You know, and it's something that's evolved over thousands of years and is quite complete in terms of its ability to locate a person in the arc of their experience towards nature's intended goal. So when we start to hear things, we feel them as though it's really part of what we are naturally. People say, well, I knew this, I just couldn't express it. Or this is the insight that has been brewing in me. It's very close to a person's heart because that's what it's about. And it's actually a process of discovery of what we really are. Not just who I am or you are as an individual, but what human experience in its greatest scope actually is. So there's a kind of a fulfillment that happens as we learn this. It's as though what we truly wanted, and maybe we didn't even know that we wanted it, becomes clear to us as we're being fulfilled by it. And at the same time, it fills up all of those things that are important to human experience. A sensation of goodness, a sensation of love, the sort of tickling of the intellect, and then the ability to go beyond it and truly grasp within oneself what life is, what's occurring. Not so much that a person knows, but they attain. And attainment is the greatest sensation, the most fulfilling of fulfillments. You know, it is akin to love, actually. It's the essence of what we feel in love. So that's part of this, the attraction and the lovely sensation of being educated by nature about nature. And because it's an attainment, it's something that one can't truly get out of books anyway. It has to be something that you experience in relation to other people, like in relation to a teacher and in relation to a group of other people who are also undergoing this same process towards attainment. And the pleasure of life is in the experiences that happen between people and the awareness that starts to take hold, take life, actually become alive between the people. It's like the greatest party in the world. I mean, being alone is not what life is about. Being completely at ease and at home in life with others is what we're all seeking. So, yeah, Tech Guru, that's what happens and that's how it feels. This is a question from David Shaitman, and he says, hi, Tony. Does nature or the upper force make us understand that other intelligence in other dimensions do exist, or does the ego create that awareness? Is it true that in nature there are other dimensions with other higher intelligences, or does the ego project that to us? Well, that's interesting. If you're talking about aliens, like the way that we think in terms of science fiction, that there are other sorts of dimensions that are beyond how we experience, like we experience things in 3 dimensions, so to speak. You know, that we see in 3 dimensions and we feel physically in 3 dimensions. So could there be alien life out there in the universe that looks completely different and has a completely different intelligence? Is that part of nature? No, it's not. And yes, there is higher intelligence and there are higher dimensions, but they're not alien. They're really part of a hierarchy of the experience of life. We're on a very low level, the lowest level of life, actually. There isn't anything lower than what we call our world. But as we grow, those dimensions are not physical dimensions. They are dimensions of creativity, givingness, purpose, concern, care, love, and bestowal. They are in a hierarchy of human sensitivity from reception, which is where we are in the hardcore locked down rock of the heart, stony heart, to a place that we think of as God, that is all loving, all caring, and all being, that's the opposite side of the scale. And that's where the higher dimensions actually are. They're in concerns of the heart. And we don't feel those things, so we project them using the material that we have learned, the nature that we've learned, which is based in separation. So we think of it as like strata, other planets, other forms of life like aliens, but it's us. Not in some physical faraway place, but in some place outside of the limited self and the idea of separation, like the round planets that float in space. That's how we are. We're like spheres in a big empty space, but that's completely illusory. That's what our nature, what our ego tells us our experience is. But we're actually completely connected in a field of intention, of desire and intention. That's where real reality is. And the more inclusive that intention is and the more inclusive that desire is, we eventually discover that we are one desire with a single intention to do good. But it's very hard for us to imagine it. So yes, it exists in nature. And the ego creates a kind of a very limited projection of what that might mean. And from Joel Gonzalez, it's a question about the works of Aryeh Kaplan. Are they any good? Are they from authentic Kabbalah? Aryeh Kaplan, who is not with us anymore, he was a rabbi, and he wrote books in the 80s about Kabbalah, about the Sefer Yetzirah, that's Abraham's book of Kabbalah, and he did an analysis of that as though it were a kind of a physics in which a person, if they could understand intellectually what was happening there, it was like the physics of spirituality, and you would be able to manifest things through this stuff. Now, that's not what Kabbalah is about. Everything in Kabbalah is about states that a person goes through as they evolve towards the attainment of the quality of bestowal, which is the quality of the Creator. It's not about using anything in order to manipulate the physical world. The physical world is nothing but the ego. And all of these explanations in the book are really intellectual, plus they're incomplete. And the other thing that he wrote about was about meditation in Kabbalah, letter combinations, and that somehow if you do these complex letter combinations and hold them in your head and so on, and claims that other Kabbalists did this, that a person could attain spirituality through some kind of a mechanism like that. And that's, according to everything that I have learned, received from my teacher and from other students who study from this teacher and from the lineage of authentic Kabbalah, that's not at all what Kabbalah is about. And if it doesn't open up an understanding and a framework that makes life make sense and lets you really truly feel the purpose of your life, and if it doesn't lead you to a place where you can actually begin to learn the methodology and attain it, it's not authentic. Because attainment has got nothing to do with reason. Reason's important, but we have to exhaust that in order to come to a place where our heart is truly open and we begin to see and feel and experience the sensations that are really their emotions, their feelings. They're not intellectual constructs, and they're not mechanical. This is a question from the episode on Is Science Catching Up to Kabbalah? And this is about this 11-second gap that neuroscientists have been able to identify. In 2 different studies they found this. One found 10 seconds, one found 11 seconds, between a decision being made in the neuropaths that they can measure in the brain, and the recognition that the decision happened inside of the person. That is, a decision's already made, and then the person recognizes that the decision is made. So this says, doesn't this research just prove how the brain supports habitual thinking? It's a mechanism that helps us unconsciously allow our habits to lead, which is what we want. So then the next task becomes knowing or deciding what we want, thinking more about it, and to train our brains to habituate it for us. So we are in control, we decide for us, we choose to take control consciously and train our brain to work for us. Why is this rocket science to scientists? This is free will that has been habituated to support our desires. What is interesting is the amount of advanced time that the habit thought is sort of waiting to be acted upon. Can you answer that question in a Kabbalah video, please? Well, it's not habit. If it were habit, we would have responded immediately, like an animal functions directly out of instinct. There's no gap there necessarily between habit and an action. A habit means you're not thinking and you just simply do that thing. You're not truly considering anything. Here, there is a decision being made for us, and then there is a recognition of that thing, and we feel it as though we made the decision. So that is a gap between something more than just time. That's a gap in understanding where free will exists. That means that what we consider to be free will has got nothing to do with whether we make a particular decision or not. It only has to do with whether we accept that decision or not. And the question remains, where did the decision come from? Who made the decision? And from Amen Banur, I was wondering about the difference between the ego and the I, and if the self needs to disconnect from its ego in order to reach the higher realms of consciousness. What is ego and what is the self? This is the most important thing that we can begin to discover in order to be able to start working towards consciousness. True consciousness. That means consciousness of spirituality. The problem that we have is that we call the self this separated part, this inner life that we have that is evaluating everything around us and evaluating it on the basis of what do I need, what can I receive, and what's good for me. And as a result of that, experiences itself as like a rock floating in infinite space. We experience ourselves as very, very separated from everything else, and essentially the experience of life is the experience of loneliness, and we're working to try to overcome that. But that's not what the self is. That's what the ego is. The self is love your friend as yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. The self is really the collective of the entire holistic system of existence. And higher consciousness, realms of higher consciousness, are the ability, as you say, to exit this concept of self that is encrusted inside the shell of egoism. Egoism is totally subjective. Spirituality and consciousness of spirituality is objectivity, and objectivity is giving, it's bestowal. It's to love others as the self because they are the self. And it's a matter of identification. When we identify with others, more than we identify with ourselves, that's what allows us to exit the ego. But of course, you have to learn how to do that now. Again, I want to invite you to join us this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for a live question and answer program that we're going to have where you can ask questions in real time. And you can join us on YouTube, and the link is here and also below. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you and answering your questions, and I'll see you on Sunday.